An additional 1,000 ICE and Border Patrol officers are being sent to Minneapolis after the fatal shooting of Renee Gold, a 37-year-old mother of three, by a federal agent last week. Department of Homeland Security Assistant Secretary Tricia McLaughlin says the ICE agents' footage seconds before Goods confirmed their claim that Jonathan Ross acted in self-defense. She says the deployment is needed to protect personnel and enforce the law. Minneapolis leaders say more agents will only create chaos and intimidation. Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey condemned the heavy-handed federal presence, demanding the agents leave the city and are calling for an independent investigation. Congresswoman Ilhan Omar warned that federal tactics are stoking chaos with heavy immigration enforcement, blocking lawmakers from visiting ICE facilities. Omar and fellow Minnesota Democratic Congress members were denied access to an ICE facility on Saturday. That comes on top of roughly 2,000 federal agents who are already deployed. Folks, a GoFundMe campaign has raised nearly $400,000 for the coward who shot Renee Good in the face. Was created January 9th. The fundraiser aims to aid the potential legal defense of Jonathan Ross. Folks like billionaire Bill Ackman has given $10,000 to that as well. Also, the state of Minnesota, as well as the state of Illinois, are suing ICE because of their actions in those two states. What say you, Omekongo?
Look, in Minneapolis right now, there are more ICE agents than there are police. It is a militarized state. It is an occupation, and Trump is priming the rest of the country to show what could happen. And you see that these agents are completely unleashed and unhinged. You see the videos. Where one said, after what happened to Miss Good, you saw what happened, right? And then as he snatched the woman's phone, we're hearing stories about them walking through Target, walking into restaurants, seeing a group of like a black or white person and a Latino person grabbing the Latino person, pulling people out of cars, and they're doing it to everybody in terms of the violence, and then arresting people who are black or Latino. This
As you're
is
talking,
Trump fully unleashed.
as you're talking, I'm playing a video of them arresting folks who were just filming them. You see how their actions are. Keep going.
Yeah, absolutely. This is complete gangbusters. This is Gestapo tactics. They raided someone's house today and took a family, according to journalist Michelle Norris. And you just comes right off the heels of JD Vance saying last week that we're going to be going door to door, just like in Nazi Germany. This is where we are right now as a country. This is what was predicted. And if people don't continue to stand up, but look, I'm seeing these people out on the streets, man, but I'm not hearing anything from the sports world outside of Doc Rivers and Steve Kerr. I'm not hearing anything from the players. I'm not hearing anything from the business community. Target, all of these places, they're all there. Not hearing anything from any of those folks who are of the well, the religious community has been speaking up. But at the end of the day, Roland, look at the what was it, the Golden Globes that was last night or something? Like nobody who got an award made a statement. The host did. Mark Ruffalo made some statements outside. This is happening right before our eyes. It's Nazi Germany in real time, and too many people are being silent right now. And that's the part that is the second most despicable thing outside of what's actually happening. People of so much prominence, people who got their names on the walls at Trump's ballroom and everything, are watching all of this happen. And it's disgusting and it's disgraceful, but it's only going to get worse if more of us don't take more action.
See, you mentioned Doc Rivers, the head coach of Milwaukee Bucks, speaking on this issue. This is what he had to say. Y'all should have it there. Go ahead.
Told LeBron to shut up and dribble, and that kind of sparked a much larger conversation about who gets to have an opinion about the government, since basketball players are obviously also private citizens. Do you think that moment was a bellwether for what was to come in American politics? And I guess just I would love to hear your thoughts in general on sort of the state of things right now, if you're comfortable sharing.
Well, first of all, I hope we are never using Laura Ingraham as a bellwether anything. I'm just keeping that real. She's more of a political actor than anything. Yeah, she would sign at CNN if they gave her enough money tomorrow, and she'd be a Democrat. So I'm gonna just throw that part out. But there's been a lot of guys. I think Arthur Ashe would be the first. If you just go back in history, and Muhammad Ali. You know, um, I think everyone should speak up. I don't think it has to be an athlete. I don't think it has to be a celebrity. I think everyday people, all of us, should speak up if we think something's morally wrong. Um, what happened in Minnesota was a straight up murder, in my opinion, and it's awful. This lady was probably trying to go home. and she didn't make it home, and that's really sad. So, um, the whole ICE thing is it's a travesty. You know, it's clearly, to me, it's we're attacking brown people, and I just happen to be brown. Um, and I don't think it should just be brown people who are upset at this. I think we all have to be. I don't care what side of this thing you are on politically. What's going on in our country right now is absolutely wrong as far as the race stuff. Uh, the politics, I'm not going to get into. The race stuff, I will. And it's just wrong. And we have to do something. But the only thing we can do right now is keep speaking up because it doesn't seem like they care. And that's troublesome. Last thing I'm going to say, because I don't want to stay on this, but I could. Um, I keep thinking about kids. And when I grew up, the president was always the role model. Um, and I think about that and the effect of being a bully, lying. How is that good for our kids? And that worries me for our future.
The Timberwolves, recognized, her life and the tragic nature of her death, and it's shameful, really, that in our country we can have law enforcement officers who commit murder and seemingly get away with it. It's shameful that the government can come out and lie about what happened when there's video and witnesses who have all come out and disputed what the government is saying. So very demoralizing, devastating to lose, anyone's life, especially in that matter. So it's terrible, terribly sad for her family and for her and for that city. And I'm glad the Timberwolves came out and expressed that sadness.
Terry Ann, now the right wing are mad. Folks like Clay Travis are saying, "Oh, I hope this guy sues Doc Rivers and Steve Kerr for calling it murder."
It's almost laughable. First of all, I'm so glad that Doc Rivers did that. And, he stands on the shoulders of giants. He's not the first athlete to come out and used his lionized position as a professional athlete or now in the coaching staff to use that as a platform to call for social change. I mean, he stands on the shoulders of Wilma Rudolph and Lenny Wilkens and Bill Russell and Muhammad Ali, as he mentioned, all of these other folks who did the same. And it becomes, in many ways, a responsibility for them. And they took it on as a responsibility. Am I saying that every athlete needs to be an activist? No. But am I saying that athletes are athletes who promote this kind of activism, social change, make a difference? 100%. They stand as examples for others. Now, in terms of them saying that he called it murder, it was murder. The Department of Homeland Security put out a longer video this morning, 3.5 minutes, and they said, this is the smoking gun, essentially. This is a video that will demonstrate that Renee Nicole Good was actually impeding their ability. I think that's the word that they used, impeding their ability to carry out their duties. The video shows nothing. But what they are relying on is their ability to say, don't believe your eyes and ears, believe us and what we are saying. Good luck to them being able to prove that in court that he said murder. And I would bet that Doc Rivers will absolutely not take back what he said because he called a spade. And what we watched was a murder. And also what we're going to watch is a mounting campaign in opposition to ICE. They are the modern day slave catchers. And one thing I can say about slave catchers, particularly after 1850 and the compromise of 1850, is that as they were snatching people visibly off the streets, just like ICE is doing, whether people were born into slavery or free people, just like whether you're a citizen or not, they were physically taking them and placing them back into slavery. It is the most modern parallel that we have. Yes, they are like the Gestapo, but they are the slave catchers. But you know what happened because of the visibility of their inhumanity and the visibility of their disdain for people? People across racial boundaries, Black people and white people, came together and they mounted increased abolitionist efforts to stop slave catchers. That is what we're seeing today. That is why we saw protests in the streets of Seattle and Minneapolis and Phoenix and so many other cities immediately following this death. So they can ramp up ICE's presence in Minneapolis, but I think what they're going to do as a side effect of that is ramp up the opposition.
We certainly will see that is happening. The protests continue, the lawsuits continue, and they are digging in, and so are those against them.
At the end of the Selma to Montgomery March in 1965, Dr. King stood in front of the Alabama State House and told 25,000 Americans that the greatest threat to the greedy oligarchy is when poor blacks and poor whites and others mobilize together and form a voting bloc that can fundamentally shift the economic architecture of our nation. In America today, we have fewer voting right protections than we did when the Voting Rights Act was passed in 1965. And state legislatures have abused their power to try to pick their voters rather than let the voters pick their legislators. Meanwhile, every day people are suffering while the greedy get richer and richer. Dr. King was right, and many others were right. The billionaires who think they can buy our politicians are afraid of people coming together across dividing lines and building power together. In 2013 and 2014, we together in this state built out the Moral Monday movement. And in 2014, more than 80,000 people showed up in Raleigh for a mass people's assembly. We mobilized our power. We mobilized our vision. We did not continue to just resist what others were doing. We claimed the world that we wanted, the society that we wanted. And what we did energized. It was not partisan, it was principled. Here we are again now in 2026, and it's time to love forward together and mobilize. This is our Selma moment, and we need everybody, regardless of your race, your creed, your color, your religion, your sexuality, whoever you are. If you love voting rights for all, if you love abolishing poverty and bringing into reality living wage, if you love health care for all, if you love and grace and mercy and do not want to buy into the religious nationalism of hate and meanness and a lack of empathy, if you want to love forward together, welcoming immigrants rather than suffering ICE raids, if you love the environment and want to see it cared for rather than the polluters taking over, if you love fully supported public education, if you want to love, not hate, and to have peace and not war, to stand against unchecked militarization and the militarization of our cities, then it is time to come together and mobilize our power and our passion for justice. Then we now are in a moment where we must move from resistance to loving forward and mobilizing our power. So, from February 11th through the 14th, North Carolinians are going to be walking and marching and caravanning from Wilson to Raleigh. And on Saturday, February 14th, Valentine's Day, we will hold a massive people's assembly for a moral agenda in Raleigh, North Carolina, saying it is time to love forward together. We are marching from a district that MAGA extremists, because of a call from President Trump, decided to gerrymander the 1st Congressional District, take it away from the people. And we are inviting all defenders of democracy and champions of the common good to meet us in Raleigh on February 14th to reclaim a moral agenda, an agenda for going forward, to pursue the society and the democracy that we want, not only for ourselves, but for our children's children. For somebody's been hurting our people, and it's gone on far too long, and we won't be quiet anymore. We will love forward together.